We are now live.
Okay, welcome everybody. We are at our Ukiah Unified School District regular board meeting, March 11th, 2021. And we are reconvening an open session, and we'll start with the flag salute. So you can stand and say the flag salute once the flag is up here. I'll get us started just to move it along. So ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thanks, Ian, for that flag. All right, okay. So we do have a couple items to report out from closed session. Superintendent Cuban, do you want to let us know what those are?
Yes. So the board, in closed session, the board took action to non-reelect 2 teachers, a science teacher and a CTE project and computers teacher. The vote was taken and it was a roll call vote, unanimous 7-0. And then regarding another item, during the closed session, the board acted to authorize the district superintendent to notify a temporary certificated dean pursuant to Education Code Section 44954B that she will not be reemployed for the 21-22 school year. And that vote was taken via roll call, and it was a unanimous vote. Additionally, during closed session, the board acted to authorize the district superintendent or designee to notify 4 temporary certificated employees, counselor 1, English teacher, high school teacher, 2nd grade teacher, pursuant to Education Code Section 44954A, that they will be released from employment effective the date set forth in the resolution that was approved.
Okay.
And it was a roll call vote, 7-0, unanimous.
Okay, thank you, Superintendent Cuban. Moving on to item C4, this is the approval of the agenda. We are going to pull and remove item D3. It's no longer necessary. And I think everything else on the agenda is staying, unless do any board members want to pull any consent agenda items for discussion? I'm not seeing any nods. Okay, so can I have a motion to approve the agenda with item D3 removed?
I so move.
Moved by Trustee Nelson.
Second.
Seconded by Trustee Arkin. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you. Motion carries. So we're at item C5, Student Advisor Report. Emma Dolan, welcome, and let us know what's going on.
Hi, I'm Emma Dolan. I'm the ASB president. I'm filling in for Mason Hoppy, who is the person you normally see here doing this, but he's traveling this week. So just a couple of things. Right now, the senior class is trying to put together plans for a game night where seniors would basically just have the opportunity to win prizes. We don't want to charge them to be there. We're hoping for donations. The school has some money that we can hopefully provide some educational supplies to some of the students for studies next year. We're working on sort of a COVID safe prom. That's still very much up in the air. Not too many details for that yet. And a graduation, but again, waiting on county and state mandates. We have our virtual talent show coming up. That is pushed to April 19th. We have been able to start a lot of different sports. Boys tennis has already played 2 matches. Cross country competed for the first time on Tuesday against Santa Rosa High. Girls golf won a tournament. I believe it was last Monday. And I believe they competed again this week, but I'm not sure if they won again. But it's been very exciting to get everyone back practicing and getting used to having the sports a little bit of normalcy again. The other thing I'm talking about, the hybrid schedule that the high school is currently trying to work on. The general consensus that I've heard from the people that I work with and talk to most is that their goal is the quote unquote room and Zoom is what we've been referring to it as, which is remote learning and in-person learning at the same time in the mornings, where teachers would have us in the classroom and they would have a camera set up where they are also streaming on Zoom for the students that don't feel comfortable returning to the classroom yet. I already have talked to a couple of teachers that I know are planning on doing that as long as they're allowed to. And I know there are issues with transportation and providing lunches, which I don't have many details on, but I know that they are trying to work that all out because, I mean, the ultimate goal for everyone is to get as many kids on campus as we can. So the general consensus is that everyone wants to be there in the morning. The ES periods have been really helpful this year, but for students that are working, which I'm one of them, and a lot of kids in all of my classes are working, it's really tough to extend the hours that we're already doing. So most of them have actually opted out, and these are AP students, straight A students, really involved, leadership, stuff like that. They've opted out of going because they don't want to have to quit their jobs. They're saving up for school. So they were really hoping for in-person learning in the mornings during the time we would normally have school. And that goes for me as well. I would probably return either way, but the ideal situation for most students, from what I've been able to gather, is that online and in person at the same time would definitely be the winner among students. And then the last thing, for the 2021-2022 school year schedule, I know they forwarded the plan to Ms. Cuban today. And it's a 4x4 schedule with A days and B days. It's the same one that Windsor High uses. And Mr. Osland asked me to bring this up because I was really involved in changing the schedule from last year's to this year's. Actually, 1 year ago tomorrow, I was supposed to be going to Windsor High with a couple of other students to visit and actually talk to other kids about the schedule. And the 4x4 schedule ended up kind of being the winner last year. And then obviously a wrench was thrown in all the gears and that got a little bit messed up. But I believe that the transition to a 4x4 with A days and B days for next year would be best. Students would take anywhere between 5 and 7 classes. Generally, you can take up to 8. But if you take 8, you're not taking 8 academic classes. There's restrictions on how many APs and how many electives and everything like that you can take to form some sort of structure, so that it's not just random kids taking 8 APs and ripping their hair out at 3 a.m. every night trying to get that homework done. But I think all of the students that have started doing A days and B days for their 3rd and 4th periods this year are adjusting really well to having it every other day. And so they're getting used to that time management. And so the transition would be even easier going into it now than it would have been just transitioning into that straight from last year. And I believe that is it.
Thank you, Emma. That was really helpful, and I really appreciate the perspective of the students on the hybrid schedule. I think that is important for us to hear as we're actually talking about it later this evening. Trustee Fernandez?
Yeah, thank you. I'm really sorry that you have had this for your senior year. I know it's not what anyone wanted, and it's really heartbreaking that you've lost so much. And I know you personally have been really involved with a lot of the spirit activities in the school, and to not be able to do that your senior year must be really tough. I love hearing that students want to do the room and Zoom. I think it's a great idea. I think 2 hours in the afternoon is tough for schedules and just for the amount of time. So I hope that you'll be able to come back at some point to a more fuller day.
Thank you.
But it is wonderful to see sports back too. That is really great.
Any other questions or comments for Ms. Dolan? Well, thank you, Emma. And you're I don't know if you've done this role before. You're welcome to stay as long as you want, but do not feel bad if you've had enough and want to leave. That's also totally fine. So thank you for joining us tonight. and for that report. Okay, so we're on item C6 for public comment for items not on the agenda, and I understand there's no public comment at all. So Ian, I'm assuming that's still true. But I'm going to carry on. Ian, tell me if that's not true, but otherwise I'll carry on. We're on item C7, acceptance of donations. Is there a motion to accept donations?
I move acceptance of donations.
Can I have a second?
I second with gratitude.
Okay, seconded with gratitude by Trustee Mulgard. Motion made by Trustee Fernandez. All those in favor? Aye. Okay, everybody's aye. All right, no opposed, no abstentions. Motion carries. Thank you for those donations. And now we are on item C8, employee organizations brief reports. First, we have CSEA, and I'm looking for CSEA.
President
maybe-
and, Lisa Rantola sends her regrets tonight. She could not be here, and so she does not have a report for tonight.
Okay, so next we have Ukiah Teachers Association. So I have a note that says Becky Buford, but it doesn't look like that's who's here. It looks like we've got Terry. So Terry, let's hear your report. Thank you.
Hi, good evening, UUSD school board members and Superintendent Cuban. Our UTA report out tonight is not a long one, and my internet is saying it's unstable, so I'm hoping that you can hear me. After listening to the President of the US tonight, I feel more like things are moving in a forward direction again. I know that our members are giving 110%, as has been the case all year, and for most is the case all of the time during their entire career. I'm proud to call the teachers of Ukiah Unified School District my colleagues. I see so much energy, positivity, and empathy every day on campuses. Sometimes our teachers are online with students until 4 or 5 or 6 p.m. because the students have questions and they're working around parents' schedules. Some teachers are starting their classroom meetings online at 7:30 a.m. so students can visit with each other and form friendships and bonds that have been missing this year. There's a balance between the experiences students need for their social and emotional wellness, we know that, and academics. It's truly a fine art to meet the needs of students in our classrooms and teach new content each and every day. With that said, UTA wants UUSD to commit to competitive wages that attract and retain quality teachers. We want the best candidates to fill those seats in classrooms who will educate our students as well as accelerate their learning in these times. This acceleration of learning can only happen with well-qualified and competitively paid people. We know teachers in this day and age have a lot of options, and UTA wants to make sure we are attracting the best and brightest when recruitment happens. I also know that during negotiations in the recent past regarding the governor's legislation, many times there were tensions in the meeting. A lot of promises were made, and teachers are counting on the district to honor those intentions and not forget their commitment. Teachers make content come alive. We make students feel safe. We love the subjects that we teach. We make a difference, and then our students make a difference in this community and in our world. We make, shape, and influence the future. I'm really proud to be a teacher. And that's my report.
Great, thank you, Terry. So we're on item C9, leadership team report. Dara Brown?
Can I just ask Trustee Van Sant?
Sure.
Does the negotiating team know what UTA was just referring to? Because I got the implication there that somehow we had threatened to not follow through on something we said we were going to do or something. So I don't need an explanation as long as the negotiating team knows whatever Terry DeSalke was referring to.
I guess, Terry, I'll give you an opportunity to respond. Do you have anything to add to that?
Sure. Yeah. Well, it's really a lot longer than I want to go into, but during negotiations, both sides gave a lot. And during that giving, there was a promise made of money, of stipends to teachers. And now that the governor's budget came out with less money than was put into the contract, there has been talk about maybe we need to go back to the table to renegotiate that. We've already told our teachers that, oops, I'm unstable again, sorry. We've already told teachers to be expecting a stipend because that was negotiated and signed. We didn't say that if it was less money from the governor, that would change anything. So we're just hoping the district can find the money and do what needs to be done to make it all work out.
Okay, so on behalf of the board, let me assure any teacher who's watching and you as their president that we will definitely meet whatever we signed. So whatever language we signed, we will do it. Now, whatever happens after that, I don't know, but I have no doubt, zero doubt, that we will complete exactly what we said we would do. Thank you. Thanks for clarifying. I don't want any teacher out there worrying about it.
Okay, so thank you for that. And I'm gonna move us to the leadership team report with Dara Brown.
Well, good evening, Superintendent Kuban, President Van Sant, and trustees. I'm super excited to be sharing with you tonight. I'm Dara Brown. I'm the principal at Frank Zeke Elementary School. Can I just share? Ian, can I have share privileges?
You should have share privileges.
Okay, thanks. Let's see. I'm not seeing it. I'm sorry for the tech glitch, you guys.
It should be the green button at the bottom.
It is green. You're right. Sorry. It's been a long day. Okay. Here we go. All right. So I am excited to tell you, I feel, well, hello from Frank Zeke. And we're super excited about hybrid learning, you know, as an option for having kids in front of teachers. We feel like it is really a golden opportunity. At Frank Zeke, we're able to, well, at all the elementary schools, we're able to have small groups in the classroom for 8 hours a week with teaching staff. And so that's what that means is that 12 to 15 students are in each classroom. And at Frank Zeke, they're in each classroom with 2 adults, a certificated teacher and a classified aide support person. And I really feel like, and our whole staff feels like, that this is an amazing opportunity for kids. We will never, ever have the opportunity to teach with 2 adults in such a small group situation again. And of course, we all know that we're never going to, hopefully, never going to have such a need for teaching in that way again. And so it's just really exciting to be able to do. And also just a nod and appreciation to all the efforts that have gone through with trying to get staff daycare on site. That really does alleviate a lot of stress from teachers and just allows them to focus on their students while they're on site. So just some quick Zeke highlights. We continue to network with our teams. I'm super excited about where our teams are. I'll share a little bit about that as we move through the presentation. One of the things that I've been working on with the staff began at the end of last school year. In March, when we started to really see the level of work and focus and time that was going to go into being able to teach students well on distance learning. And so I just put a real priority on staff wellness so that I could support our staff, so our staff could do the amazing work that they do with students. And so I've been having a wellness challenge and wellness information in the staff emails, staff newsletters that go out every week, both to certificated and classified staff on our site. Again, a really exciting shout out for our teams. Our whole office staff has gotten together. We decided to change all of our student bulletin boards in our school hallway to staff bulletin boards. So we have all kinds of wellness activities going on there, wellness information, resources from the community, resources through the district, just to make sure that our staff has everything at their fingertips. And we're also having fun together. We have a Scrabble board going on. We have would you rather going on. We have anonymous shout out board going on. So it's been really great. And then of course, tutoring on site. has been very effective. It's really small group focused, very targeted. And so you see a picture of our teacher, one of our teachers up there working in tutoring. And this is just some stuff that I just wanted to share with you. This picture right up here is a socially distanced classroom. Our kids are doing amazing. They're wearing the masks. They're following the guidelines. We have orange arrows on our concrete. They're following the orange arrows. They are going outside to recess, staying 6 feet apart, having a great time. It really isn't, you know, on some level we were concerned it was going to be like pulling teeth or something like that. And they're just excited to be there. So they've just jumped in with both feet and they're responding really well. Mr. Pignon, our PE teacher, really just took the bull by the horns and is taking care of our PE equipment so that our kids have some recess equipment to play with. So you'll see the clean bucket and then the kids know to put that in the used bucket. There's been no confusion. They've been really great about that. This is a picture of a distance learning spirit day. So that was our 100th day of school. And at our site, they get to dress up as what they think it would be like to be 100 years old, or what they think people will be wearing in 100 years. And so this is two kiddos showing us at home what they think people will be wearing in 100 years. These are just a couple pictures over here of some of our boards in the hallway that are just geared towards staff wellness. And you see the amazing Nan Carter right there. She is working in small group reading, and that's what that looks like on the 100th day of school. So what has leadership been up to? A lot, and that's sort of what I'm going to show you. I'll just go over this really quick, and this is by no means a comprehensive list, but we've been working together and individually to develop and modify plans and to adapt those plans, obviously, to the state and county guidance you're all aware of. Creating a plan for and putting into action staff daycare, creating and modifying plans as necessary, our site-specific protection plan, cleaning schedules, recess schedules, duty schedules, snack plans, arrival plans, dismissal plans, vehicle traffic flow plans, foot traffic plans, parent communication, staff and student training on health procedures, staff and student training on guidance and adherence to them, COVID plans for staff and students, modifying classes mid-year to include 2 different instructional models and 3 model choices that focus on student success and allowing for parent choice. We are participating in supporting contact tracing, working with transportation to develop a workable busing plan. We don't do that so much at Zeke, but most of the elementary schools and middle schools and high schools, that's a big deal. And so that list goes on. While we're doing that, all the regular activities of this time of the year must still continue. And so we're doing observations and evaluations, site fiscal responsibilities, enrolling for next year, doing LPAC assessments, gearing up for SBAC assessments, beginning next year's planning and on. We are also doing district and site meetings, district committees, equity task force workshop, CAPS, etc. Zowie, how do we do that? I'm gonna tell ya. We have, whoops, here's why we can do that. We have great leadership teams. We have both district and site that work well together. We have absolutely phenomenal and compassionate leadership from our superintendent and our assistant superintendents, are all those in the leadership at the district office, as well as everyone else at the district office. People are supporting one another with sharing ideas, suggestions, and needs. I was really excited to talk to my staff this week about, as I began to really think about, we are doing this and we're doing it well. And that's exciting. And so how, getting my staff's thoughts, and here's just a few of the things that they said. They're very grateful to have had additional paid hours to focus on preparing for hybrid learning. We have phenomenal techs who just go above and beyond. We as a leadership, as middle leadership, we have the freedom to supply our site professionals with what they need. Our team networking is strong. The staff feels that their needs are heard and that the reality of what they've been asked to do is understood. They feel empowered to be able to adjust to meet student needs. And everyone, I heard it over and over and over, everyone is student-centered. So a couple of the actual quotes from people that I spoke to this week. It feels like we are all parts of a pyramid with students at the top. We have a circle of respect, humility, and service, and we have come back to our roots. And that is how my staff is feeling, and I'm so excited about that. So thank you so much for letting me share. I will stop sharing my screen and return to you all.
Thank you, Principal Brown. Trustee Nelson?
That was an awesome presentation. I just wanted to start with that. I love that this time of the evening you still have that kind of pizzazz. So thank you for the kick in the backside, at least for me, because I feel your pain. The doctors, CDC, newspaper article after newspaper article has supported the idea that it is safe to go back to school. It is so exciting to hear that what you're experiencing, that though, you know, Podunk Ukiah can do it safely as well. So I'm so glad that that experience is going really well. A question that I have, the picture that you have of the class, I have this imagination of what it might look like. I haven't been on campus, so I haven't seen it. So thanks for sharing that. I'm curious, it looked rather small, that particular class. Has your staff, I know some schools, and I've lost track of who's doing what, because everybody kind of is doing their own path. Is your school doing simultaneous distance learning and in-class learning?
So most of our classes are not doing that. We do have a special situation. We have second grade just being absolutely, completely forward thinking and doing some really interesting stuff with that. We have that situation in one of our fifth grade classrooms because we only had enough students choose distance learning to fill half of one fifth grade classroom. So that classroom is teaching distance and in-person at the same time. And then we only have one sixth grade classroom. And so we have half a hybrid, half that class is hybrid and then half of that class is distance. So that teacher is also teaching that at the same time. And the classroom that I showed is actually our sixth grade classroom. So it looks small. It's one of our portables, so it's a little bit smaller than an average classroom, not too much, but the desks are sixth grader size and the people are sixth grader size. And so it looks a bit smaller.
So in that situation, Dara, are those students coming 4 days a week then, if they really don't need to be limited to 2?
They are not. And what they're doing is coming to, the kids in person are coming 2 days a week. So they get the priority and focus. And then the other students are looped into direct instruction and given support in the afternoon. Then the flip side is true for the other side, so that, let me be a little bit more clear. So for instance, if we have hybrid A, Monday, Tuesday kids on site in a classroom, then they are given the priority. The distance students are looped into direct instruction, but the priority is on small group support, remediation if necessary, acceleration if possible, with the kids who are in front of the teacher. And then on the Thursday, Friday side of that, the reverse is true. So that the distance learning kids, everybody's looped into the direct instruction, but the distance learning kids have the priority in terms of small group, in terms of remediation or acceleration in the morning. And then the other half of the class gets that individual attention and small group attention in the afternoon. I don't know if that's clear. It's hard without a piece of paper, I guess, to show you, but.
I understand, and I appreciate that teacher is being willing to do the simultaneous instruction in that way. So I think we're probably still in kind of a learning phase since it's only been a couple weeks. And I think the reason you had that question from me and Trustee Nelson brought it up is this board's very relentless about wanting kids in class as much as they possibly can, as many days as possibly, no matter what. So that was of interest to me.
For sure, and we need to have them more often. I think the reason that we don't, for sure, we didn't even consider it with the fifth graders, is because it creates maybe an inequitable situation for fifth graders, because we do have another fifth grade class that is completely hybrid. And so where our sixth grade teacher is, she's being pretty creative because she is an elementary school teacher. She is trying to work with what the sixth graders at middle school are doing, try to tailor her approach to be a similar approach. So it's sort of a bit of a Frankenstein. I don't know if that's a fair way to put it. Really creative approach to that. But yeah, if we could have them more, we would love to have them more.
And I'm hoping that when you can, you do. So
Yeah, strive for it, please. It'd be awesome.
Trustee Arkin?
I just want to tell Dara that I love her energy. It's wonderful, and I love your positive attitude. It is very rewarding to see and hear like something like that. And thank you.
Thanks.
And all your teachers who are working hard.
I really feel like it's easy to be this way in this district. And, I grew up in this district, not as a child, but as a professional. And so I only in the last 10 or 15 years really have had the opportunity to go out to different conferences and workshops and see what other districts deal with. And I'm pretty grateful. I'm extremely grateful and proud of my staff. And I'm very grateful for the district that I work for and the support that we have. So
Thank you.
it's easy.
Great. Any more questions for Dara? Okay, thank you very much. So we're gonna, at the superintendent's request, we're gonna go to items E1 through E3 first, and then go back to D, the budget and the resolution, if that's okay with everybody. So we'll skip ahead now to E1, reopening update, and it looks like I'll turn it to you, Superintendent Cuban.
Yes, and the reason why we're switching those is we have some guests on with us. We have a couple of our principals who we've invited to join on this presentation and our LCAP update. So anyway, that's why we wanted to switch it. But I agree, Principal Brown's positivity and smile is contagious. And I just really appreciate all the good work that you guys are doing. I know it's been a big haul this year, and totally appreciate everything. So all the positive attitudes. So we have more positivity to share. Certainly a lot of challenges as well, but we wanted to share with you, we're shifting now. This used to be called the distance learning update, and now we are calling it the reopening update. If you want to hear more about distance learning, we'll have our arm twisted and share, but we'd really like to talk more about in-person instruction and everything that's going on related to that. So we did want to share with you, and Katie's going to share her screen. We did want to share with you that we're in the 27th week of school, which is just amazing. I can't believe we're in the 27th week. We are going on week 4 this week. We're in week 4 this week for transitional kindergarten through 6th grade and a couple of our other grade levels at the middle schools. And then grades 3 through 6 have been open for 3 to 4 weeks, depending on what school you're at there. And I'm really excited to say that 7 through 12, we are projected to reopen to a hybrid in-person schedule on March 18th, which is next Thursday. And if you're following all of the news at the state news, actually, the governor is in the process of changing the guidelines for moving to the red tier. When we as a state hit a certain level of vaccinations for vulnerable communities, and we're due to hit that soon. So anyway, we feel very confident that we will be opening next Thursday, and we won't officially make that statement until either this coming Tuesday when we see that data, or the governor makes his announcement that it's retroing back to the previous week. So we feel really confident that we'll be reopening 7 through 12 next Thursday, the 18th. And we are so excited to be welcoming students back to school, even just in our hybrid schedule. So go ahead and move forward there, Katie. We again wanted to share with you our numbers of students attending in person versus hybrid, and you can see them there on the screen. We have a little over close to 60% of our elementary students in the hybrid model, and the rest are still in distance learning. And then Katie, go ahead and move forward there. These are the projections so far on our secondary students in terms of who is going to be coming back to hybrid in person. You'll see overall, we're actually close to 60% again. And this is just overall for 7-12 or our middle schools and high schools. But you see those numbers go up slightly as kids get into other grades. So you can see those numbers. We are making last minute changes to families who have maybe changed their minds in this grade span. So we'll get you final numbers next Thursday when we go back to our in-person model, but you can see that there. And we wanted to just give you a transportation update as well, and let you know that transportation is extremely limited because of the requirements for distancing on our buses. But we are currently running in our TK through 6, we have 6 special education routes, and there are 51 students being transported. We have 1 van route with 4 students on it. We have 8 A-day general ed routes with 93 students and 6 B-day general ed routes with 51 students. When we bring back our 7th and 8th grade, that passenger load will increase. So next Thursday, you'll see larger numbers there. And Katie, go ahead. We also invited, and Dara talked a slight bit about simultaneous teaching is what it is called, but we invited our Pomalita Middle School principal, Brian Barrett, to talk about what's going on just as a very promising practice that is happening in various pockets throughout the district, but more systematically at Pomalita. And we wanted Brian to share a bit on how things are going there with simultaneous teaching. Brian.
Hi, Deb and members of the board. Good evening. We're excited to talk about our simultaneous teaching that we're doing in 6th grade. You're not going to have the same energy level with me that you did with Dara. I didn't have that when I was an elementary principal either. I'm just saying that. It was fun to watch her and the excitement she's having. So our in-person instruction started. Really, we started talking about this in the early stages of the year with our planning, where we really built a school within a school with our parents that wanted distance learning throughout the year. We took those kids and we really made like I said, a school within a school just for distance learning. It was about November when we started talking about coming back. And at that point, I think we resurveyed parents again, and we found out that we had a lot of concern about parents, by parents, especially in our dual language immersion program, because if they stayed in a distance program, they wouldn't have, we didn't have the personnel and distance to instruct students in dual language immersion. So it really, had a quandary there for parents on what to do. We started talking with teachers in November about simultaneous teaching. Mr. Dewey started meeting with Pomalita teachers and talking about the barriers that we might have, what would work, what we could do to help teachers. So we've been talking with staff for a long time, since November, about this. When we started to come back in 6th grade, we started talking to, again, the 6th grade teachers, and they really felt like it was better educationally for students to simultaneous teach, and they all agreed to do so. And in our staff, I made the comment that we were going to have our 6th grade make a presentation to the rest of the staff to see how it went. And I wanted to make sure it was unbiased and from teachers, to talk about the pluses and the minuses, so what went right, what went wrong. And so the 6th grade last staff meeting, which was last week, did a great presentation to the staff. Each teacher spoke. It was really, it was fun to listen to them teach the rest of the staff how to do that, simultaneous teach, and like I said, the pros and cons. And the entire staff at that point voted to do simultaneous teaching. So we at Pomalita are going to do simultaneous teaching 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. I don't know if there's any questions you guys have about that, or we should need to go to the next slide.
Brian, can I ask a question?
Sure.
Super exciting. I'm not sure how the breakup is for following the COVID rules on having kids in the classroom. I'm screwing this all up. Is there a possibility of having kids in the classroom 5 days a week safely, as well as the distance learning kids 5 days a week, or are the numbers not quite there for that?
If the rules were allowed with distancing, we would be happy to have the students in classroom 5 days a week.
Brian, what would you need for that to be? What is the distancing you would need?
Well, the distancing is, I see Deb, it looks like she wants to talk, but I think it's the 6 feet, the 6 feet minimum clearance that we have between students.
What could you make it work at?
Well, I mean, it would be very difficult to have everybody back at 6 feet and 4 feet. We need to have 15 to 17 kids in a class, I believe. Deb, do you have anything to add to that?
No, we're just adhering to the public health guidelines that are set out to do. Brian, I think the question is if you, and I know that Pomalita has a lot of kids who wanted to be at school in person.
Yeah.
So that's why they would not, I don't think they would be able to meet the physical distancing requirements and bring them back more than what they're bringing right now, because they have so many students who are back in person.
No, I understand. What I'm getting at is right now, one of our limitations in bringing kids back to campus 4 days a week is because we can't accommodate something like, let's say, 20 students in a classroom at 6 feet, but we could accommodate 20 students in a classroom if that was reduced to 3 feet. And if we as board members are going to advocate for actually science-based changes from the public health perspective, there's no difference between 3 and 6 feet. I understand you have to follow that right now, but if the rule was 3 feet, I guess my question to Brian was, if the rule was 3 feet, could you have kids on campus 5 days or 4 days a week?
Yeah, I would. We've done all of our measurements on 6 feet, and so I'd have to go back through and see how many kids we could fit in. It's a good question. I'll be happy to take that on if that was a request of the board.
I'm not sure you need to do anything right now. I'm just, things are changing so rapidly in the pandemic. I wouldn't be shocked if the rules did change to 3 feet or something like that. So I'm just, and I know you probably are thinking ahead to that already, Mr. Barrett. So I just had that question, but I don't want to stop your presentation. So Trustee Nelson, and then, sorry, I guess maybe we do. Let's do Trustee Fernandez first and then Nelson. And
I don't have
everybody.
So question. I just want to say that I'm really, really excited to see that your staff has agreed to do this. And I think it's a testament to the culture you have at Pomalita. And, you know, I'm thinking back to our Chromebook take-home pilot that Pomalita stepped up for, and it was successful. And then all of our other schools followed. So really kudos to you and your staff for figuring out something that's, you know, I agree is going to be far beneficial for the students than the traditional hybrid. So thank you. I really, really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Trustee Nelson, did you have a comment?
Brian and everybody else, I just wanted to warn you, there's going to be a common message. I think it's from the whole board, certainly for myself, that if there's any way to squeak in more in-person time, whether it's for a 2nd grade class only or 3 through 5 or whatever it might be, even if it's one class and not another class, teachers are just magical when they're in person with children. I mean, the learning, we just know how well it works. And Zoom has been a stopgap for this really horrid situation we're in. But if there's any way we can get even a single class in front of a teacher, the magic happens. And so we need to do every single chance we get. So thanks for letting us put you on the spot, Brian.
Nope, that's okay. Anytime.
And Brian, I do want to echo both what Tyler's saying, but also Zoe. My seventh grader is happier than she's been all year long. When she got her pod, and she's not even on campus yet. And she is so excited to go back. And when she described her schedule to me, and I realized that you had your entire staff doing simultaneous instruction and rather miraculously all teaching different things in different grades, I couldn't even believe it. So really, hats off to you. I mean, my understanding is you have PE teachers teaching math. That's incredible. And I really, really hope you can extend that admiration to your staff. I'm super amazed, and really, you should be super proud.
Yeah, I'm very proud of the risk taking that they're willing to have, and it's really for kids. They're doing it because they love being with kids and they know it's what's best. So, thank you. Just to keep going here, this is one of our sixth grade teachers put this together on her presentation. These are some of the things that she felt was helpful: the technology, headphones, pen and pencil, just the personal items. These are something that, she says, make sure that the kids brought. And then I think we're going to see her classroom real quick and sort of see what it looks like with simultaneous teaching. So in this picture, you see the students in class doing work, and then you can see how the teacher's monitoring the students that are doing distance away for that period of time. And this is what right at the end, you can see how she's monitoring both using her two computers that she had working there.
And Brian, I'll just echo what everybody is saying. I want to say a huge thank you to Pomalita, your leadership team, your staff, every moment during this pandemic. When we've run into some sort of problem, including having 60 elementary students on your campus in an after-school safari program with the city. You have just stepped up. You and your team have stepped up beyond belief, and just your can-do spirit and attitude is so appreciated. So just please pass on my thanks as well to the staff, and also to you and your administrative team. So just thank you.
Thanks. It's great to have the support from you and the board. We'll keep pushing forward and trying new things.
Principal Barrett is also coaching golf right now, and has taken on, like we all have, but taken on various roles during this pandemic to help support kids. So thank you so much.
Yeah, Brian, I love your enthusiasm also. Yours is steady, and you always come up with something new, different, and boy, this is very exciting. It makes me feel that we can go forward with providing our kids with what needs to be provided. And thank all of you guys. Oh, this is very neat.
Thank you.
Awesome. Oh,
Is that the end of the presentation? I mean, I didn't mean to cut anyone off.
yeah, I think, no, it's not, but I think Trustee Mulgard has her hand up.
Okay, I can't see everybody when the split screen is like this, so just yell out maybe. Trustee Mulgard?
I was just wondering, where is the camera normally for the students who are zooming in?
So she's got a dock camera there that's showing from her computer onto the whiteboard. So normally it would be a view of on her computer screen of the students that were in distance learning that day. So the dock camera is shooting that up onto the screen.
And is your question, where is she teaching from? Where is the teacher teaching from?
Like, where is she?
right now she's taking pictures of what it would look like, but normally she would be behind this plexiglass and desk.
Oh, I see. Right. Sheet.
Yeah.
And you're muted.
The camera is on her and then she shares her screen, or the camera is always on the whiteboard?
Actually, she can do both.
Excellent. Okay, that's what I was hoping. Great, great. Thank you.
Okay, again, we just wanted to highlight a great practice out there. We have a little bit more data for the board. We've been doing in-person activities in our secondary schools. So at Ukiah High School, they have 2 pods with 21 students for an internet hub. There's a pod with 3 chemistry students, 15 fashion students, 9 band students, 30 history students in 3 pods in the after school, well, not after school, the afternoon enrichment, 14 auto students, 11 students in ag, 12 MESA students, and then we have 20 middle college students in 3 pods as well. Pomalita, while we're not open to in-person yet for 712, they have an internet hub pod with 6 students. Eagle Peak has an internet hub for 7th and 8th graders for 7 students. Nokomis is continuing to run an internet hub with 8 students, and 2 of them are Pomalita middle school students. So it's a family that we can serve. Additionally, we have our amazing after-school in-person activities, which are rapidly expanding. We'll talk a little bit about sports there. But at Ukiah High School, we have 13 students going to an art club, 4 students in a math club. Pomalita with MESA and Science Olympiad, 10 to 23 students. City of Ukiah Safari, 80 students. Eagle Peak Middle School, art, science, and basketball, 23 students. Frank Zeke, the Safari program has 57 students in it. At Ukiah, there are 61 students in the Safari program. Spaces serving in person, 76 of our students, Boys and Girls Club, 31. So we have quite an extensive after school activity program going. And then for after school sports, and by the way, I want to express intense gratitude for our Assistant Superintendent, Nicole Glenser, and our CBO, Steve Barrickman, for everything that they've done to get us to the point where we can meet the challenge of COVID testing our students. And we are totally up and running with that. And it's one of the reasons why we can run the sports that we're running. So at Ukiah High School, we have 28 students in cross country. We are starting wrestling because we can now start indoor sports. We do have to daily COVID test our students in the indoor sports. So we are doing that. We have 28 students there. 41 students are out for football. We have 21 students with swimming and diving. Girls soccer, 31, boys soccer, 33. Girls golf, 10, boys tennis, 6, baseball, 34, softball, 21. We are about ready to start basketball and volleyball. And so, but right now, currently, we are serving 764 students after school in person through sports activities. And I got to see some of their amazing masked faces on Tuesday as we were doing COVID testing. We are requiring that athletes get tested once a week. And then the indoor, it's required that they get daily antigen testing. So Stephen Summers at Ukiah High School, the athletic director, has been amazing, doing really remarkable work trying to get kids on campus for in-person activities. So there's a lot happening in our schools. It's super exciting.
So Deb, can I ask a question?
Yes.
Are these sports kids competing against other schools or just practicing?
Nope, they are competing against other schools. Actually, tomorrow I'm going to send the schedule to the board of all of the different athletic competitions that are going on. We are condensing the sports season. So trying to get everything covered. I know that there was a golf match this week. And then I know there was a cross country event. So we are able, and I think I attached the sports plan to the next agenda item, so we can talk about the details of that. But we do have an approved sports plan from our public health officer, and we're just excited to be able to get kids served.
So are most of our competition with Sonoma County?
Yes.
Are we doing Lake County? Yeah, okay.
It is Sonoma County. We're just getting we're working on middle school sports right now as well. So, but we do compete with Sonoma County schools.
Wow.
We have coordinated our sports plans with them, and we've got a rigorous sports schedule.
Wow, I'm glad to hear that, because they've been not letting anything happen. Oh.
Yeah. Can I say that it makes me so happy to see that number, that we have 764 high schoolers who are participating in sports. I know for so many kids that's really, really important, and I'm really glad to see that. And Deb, 2 months ago, if we would have thought, we would have been told you could do sports, but you have to do all this testing, we would have said, oh, there's no way. And you and your team have done a tremendous job with getting the testing in line so that we can actually, it's crazy to think we can test some of these athletes every day. So thank you for working so hard. And I know Steve and Nicole have done a ton as well, so that we have testing and we can actually offer these sports to our kids. I'm really, really happy about it.
Yeah, and just to clarify, I misspoke. It's 764 kids total we're serving after school. So just that number there at the bottom is related to all students. So, but it is, and we'll see that number increase too. And I'm really glad that we, some districts or people threw their hands in the air, because this testing thing is, it's pretty rigorous to run. And we just thought, well, let's figure it out. And I'm so glad that we did, because now we're able to give our kids even more with indoor sports. And the kids are great. They're cooperative. They'll get used to it, and I think they're all just happy to be there. So we're glad that we get to give our kids a little 12 weeks of doing some things that they really love. So, okay, let's move forward.
Can I just, before we go too far away from those numbers, I love seeing them grow. I'm worried about wrestling and football and soccer, but we'll do our best, I'm sure. The learning pods that are during the school session, math was missing, English was missing, biology was missing. I'm wondering, why are we not? I'm sure kids are struggling in those classes. What do we need to do to get that to happen? Because we need to get kids in front of teachers.
I know that Principal Osland is on here. Do you want to address that?
Yeah, I think that next Thursday on the 18th, we're going to have a hybrid kick in, and I think that from there it's going to grow. I'd concur what student body president said, and that is that I think that the room and Zoom appreciate what Principal Barrett shared, and I think that's the direction that we all want to go in. And then I think that question should be overrun with the idea of just having the kids in the class. I agree with everything that's been said. I look forward to next Thursday. And then I look forward to what I think one of the board members had said, is that we're going to see some shifts in the number. We're going to see some shifts in what 6 foot really is. And so I look forward to all those shifts. And in the interim, I think teachers, when they meet the kids and the kids are meeting the teachers, I think that the kids will be real persuasive in room and Zoom. And I think the teachers will be happy to do it. And I think that I do appreciate the Pomalita teachers leading the way on that. And so, Trustee Nelson, my hope is that that question becomes a moot question, and that nature takes over and we're back in school. And right now we're preparing for the 18th, and that's our focus. And then we need to grow from there.
All right, I'm looking forward to that. I will continue to push. I think that I can say that I'm not the only one that is a little concerned about the lack of those numbers in those pods, which we're allowed to do right now, and it's safely. We can do it safely. I have way higher expectations of our staff than what we've seen there. So I'm looking forward to the 18th, looking forward to significant improvement.
Can I ask for some clarification from Mr. Osland? I guess I appreciate that you were commenting that the room and Zoom is a way to have more kids on campus. And I think that I'm a little puzzled right now. If a teacher is doing simultaneous instruction, is there some reason that the kids that are comfortable being in the classroom are not welcome in the classroom in the morning?
Yeah, I'm not sure I understand the question. Could you repeat the question?
I guess what I'm trying to understand is, so I understand that the high school is sticking with the 4-hour morning because that makes sense. But if a teacher is in the morning doing a room and Zoom, they're comfortable doing a simultaneous instruction in the morning, why can those children that are comfortable being in the classroom not be in the classroom? Is there some reason?
There is no reason that they cannot, and we do have teachers that are prepared actually to begin that.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
no, and they after the last board meeting, when I stated that it was heard loud and clear, that was communicated, as was the message that it's available, that room and Zoom's available. When we go back into, if we are in a red tier and we initiate the hybrid, it's available. And so when we go into the hybrid and you, what Ms. Dolan had said there, I think that's the sentiment of a lot of kids. And frankly, I think you're going to see with a lot of teachers. So there's no prohibition of that, nor is there a prohibition if you have a small class. Some of our classes are smaller. They can be there. And that question came up earlier. Can you meet more than the 2 days? And the answer in my book is sure.
Okay, that's really good to hear. I'm happy.
Yeah, and I think that we've all heard, and I think we all understand, and I think we're all equally frustrated over the limitations regarding the 6-foot distance. We're frustrated with, the bus transportation falls in those same rules, and we're committed to providing transportation K-12 or P-12 through 12th, and that limits us. And we at the high school ended up in the spot we're in. If somebody said, would you want to be there all week, every day? We'd answer that the answer is yeah. And so anyway, we're working in the limitations, but I think we all have this sense that things are shifting. I'm an optimist, and
I see what
nature's going to do some good things for us.
I'm going to Superintendent Cuban and then Trustee Nelson. And as long as this presentation is up, just for the board, I can only see like 6 things at a time. So if you're waving your hand and I'm not noticing you, say something. But Superintendent Cuban and then Trustee Nelson.
I'm going to quote my amazing colleague from Fort Bragg Unified, Becky Walker, who says all the time that this is a start. It is not our goal. We want kids on campus every day, back to whatever normal used to be, but we know that they need to be on campus every day with their kids. And we look forward to that day, truthfully, because the hybrid model is a stopgap solution to deal with a multitude of restrictions that are placed on us, but it is not what we want in the end.
Trustee Nelson?
I really excited again to have in-person training. Our UTA president alluded rather cryptically to payment to teachers to return to in-class schooling that had been negotiated. I think the expectation of those negotiations were that we would have in-person schooling. So I'm really looking forward to that happening more and more and more.
Okay, Superintendent Cuban
we have 2 more slides, Megan.
Okay, and because I did want to close this up in a way with the board, but I'm not trying to squash conversation. I just couldn't figure out where we were in this section. Okay.
So we'll finish and then we'll stop sharing so you could see everybody.
Okay. Great, thank you.
A quick reminder, 76% of our staff has been vaccinated. We continue to send out opportunities, and our partnership with the city of Ukiah was very instrumental, our city manager, in making that all happen, and we're so grateful. You will start hearing from me publicly. We really need to get, once things open up a bit, I'd love to see us prioritize, especially our seniors in high school, to get vaccinated. We want to give them an incredible graduation because they have missed out on a lot. And so whatever we can do to advocate for getting our 16, 17, and 18-year-olds vaccinated, as soon as things open up, we definitely want to do that. And I know the city is willing to partner with us to make that happen. So it's my next advocacy there. And ask is that we can really make that a priority in our county. And I'm grateful to our county for prioritizing our education staff and taking a chance, and it paid off very well. And the last slide, we talked a little bit about this already with testing, but Ukiah Unified, we are our own lab under the California Department of Public Health. Never thought I'd go from English teacher to lab director. I'm not a lab director. I shouldn't use that terminology, but we are our own lab. We're administering antigen tests, which are the 15-minute rapid tests. We're testing, because we're out of deep purple, we're testing employees at a minimum who want to be tested at a minimum of twice every 2 weeks, and students once every 2 weeks. Now that we've moved out of deep purple, testing is voluntary, but it's a key to keeping our campuses open and healthy. So I really encourage people to participate in our testing. We have mandatory testing for athletes, which I talked about. We have 50 staff members fully trained to administer these tests. We've purchased a new software system that helps us more easily report. We have 9 more that are going to be trained by March 19th. We've successfully administered 622 tests from February 28th to March 9th. Happily, all have been negative. We have tested 246 staff members, a total of 424 times. We've tested 180 students 198 times. We also tested staff the week of the 22nd, but it wasn't entered into the software. So we have really stepped up in so many ways. I'm really proud of our staff, and I'm so glad that we can offer this up to our students and staff. And we've had other districts calling us to ask us, how did we make this happen? And again, huge gratitude to Nicole and Steve. And then also to our amazing staff members, our food service staff members. Not only have they served over 200 meals or 2 million meals, they're part of our testing team, and they come and do this with a great big smile on their faces, and so many other staff members as well, who are doing everything that we possibly can do to give our kids everything that we possibly can under the guidelines. And I'm just super grateful. So with that, I think we'll stop talking. And Katie, sorry I took that over again. I just get on a roll, and just wondering if people have questions, comments, thoughts.
I see you, Trustee Barrett. Sorry about that.
Okay, just a couple things about the high school. I was really encouraged to hear Emma Dolan talk about the room and Zoom, and I certainly would hope that Principal Osland is encouraging teachers to go that route. I'm very disappointed in the afternoon supplemental optional situation with the hybrid. I just don't think that's enough. I think we're cheating our kids if we stay with that only. And I would like to know what Principal Osland is doing to make sure his teachers are trained to know how to do the room and Zoom.
Well, I think step one, again, getting back on the 18th. And then I think step two is Deb and I have spoken about where it is effectively being used in the other schools. And certainly Mr. Barrett presented that, and we look forward to working with them. And I'm confident that there are teachers that are already prepared to do that, and there will be more. And the training, I think, is within the district. And so Deb, you have your hand up.
No, I was just going to add my amazing role model educator, Dr. Doug Fisher. I don't know how that guy produces so many books, but he just produced a book on simultaneous teaching and hybrid models, and it just came out, and he's doing a staff development training on April 6th that we were going to push out to people so they can hear from somebody quality like Dr. Doug Fisher. But I also feel like our own teachers at Eagle P or at Pomalita could help with some of that training as well, especially from an equipment and technology perspective about what's worked. I did see their entire presentation, Pomalita's, and they shared very openly with the staff about what they've learned, what has worked, what has not worked. And so we've got a great nugget right here in our own district as well.
Trustee Barrett?
I would really like to hear at the next board meeting how the high school has progressed with this, and what we're doing to get more kids in the classroom in the mornings at the high school.
Well, and as we progress, I would hope that, one, the distance rules do diminish, and two, I think that, you know, the transportation, we've worked hard as a district in being able to transport kids, and I think that equity does become an issue if we can't transport kids, and we can get them there in the afternoon in the high school. If we can find a way to get them there in the morning, that would have made, I think, the composition of what you're looking at different. And I think the second thing is that it'd be great to be able to feed them lunch if the time spans over lunch, and we haven't been able to do that either. And so we're working within parameters, but at the very same time, yes, we can go room and Zoom. I would hope that everybody would always be conscious of the idea that if we're not providing transportation, that there is an equity issue, and it doesn't mean you don't do it. It just means that I think that we need to attend to that, and we need to be cognizant of the parameters that we've worked in.
Somebody was raising their hand. Thank you, Gordon. Trustee Nelson? No, you don't have anything? Okay. Any other board comments? Trustee Mulgard?
I'm sorry, I was trying to find it. It was like 4 slides before the end, and it was basically a question about, I think it was Nokomis. There was one school that seemed to be having much less in person than other schools. Was that my imagination, or was I reading it wrong?
I think it was Oak Manor. One of them did have
Oak Manor.
Yeah.
And I was just wondering how we might be able to help address that. Thank you.
I think time will hopefully help with that issue. You know, I know I attended the Title VI meeting at not the last Title VI meeting, but the meeting before, and the parents there expressed to me that the Native American community has been disproportionately hit with issues with COVID, and they are fearful. And so I think time and success with having things safe at our school sites, I think will help tell the story there. So
does that particular Hopland tribe, because they're so far out geographically, not that they're more or less important than any other tribe, does that tribe have a functioning educational center where the kids do have a chance to get together? And how are we supporting that effort, since we're not able to always bring them in, or they're not able to come in because of, you know, a higher disproportionate load of COVID?
We have offered support to our tribal education centers for sure. I mean, we always do partner with them. I do know that some of our education centers have shared with the families that if they're going to participate in the education center cohort, they couldn't also participate in the school cohort. So I did have Scott Paulin, our director of alt ed, reach out to all of the families who are choosing to come to school to see what needs they might have, to be able to see, you know, how to help serve them on the other days as well.
As we discuss funds going forward, I'd like to see if there's any tribe that has an educational center that's functioning could use like a mini grant. Like if we were to make available funds to them, how could they use them? Because I think that that's another way to help reach students rather than requiring that we always do everything. And since there will be some funding available, I'd like to at least consider that.
Trustee Nelson?
With the idea of expressing how safe schools can be, Marin County Schools has a status update. And I think, Deb, it's an idea that I thought was kind of a waste of time a while ago. It's really fascinating as a parent they've got a gazillion students. They've been in school for 111 days, and they've had a total of 11 suspected school transmissions. It's 1,265,700 days, student days. They've had 11 transmissions. I'm really excited to see our dashboard. I'm not sure if it's up yet or not, but it really gives you a sense of, gosh, you know, if you follow the protocols, you can be safe. It's just shocking to see the number of hours students have been in the classroom safely. So I'll have to find ours because it's really kind of inspirational. It's like, we can do this.
It is. It's on our website, and I do believe in our safety protocols, and I think they work. So I'm looking forward to continuing to follow them and work with public health to make sure we're doing everything that we need to do. I know that we won't be without. We want to avoid having outbreaks. I mean, that is our goal, is to avoid having outbreaks in our schools. So if our safety protocols are working, we will be in good shape, and they have been so far.
To that end, and I don't mean to be, it's a little bit of an odd timing for me to say the statement, but I do want to thank the administration and the teachers for all you are doing. I mean, I feel like although the board is relentless in wanting students back as much as possible, it comes at the same time that we recognize how much work you've been doing, how flexible you've had to be, how many changes there's had to been. So I absolutely recognize all of that. And I do also recognize that the board has been really intentional about wanting more. And so I just want to acknowledge that to you, Deb, as well. I think one of the things I was wondering, and one of the questions, reasons I was asking Principal Barrett about this, I personally get really frustrated when we're not following the science in the terms of being overly cautious. There's a lot of new data. I don't see why 6 feet is relevant anymore. I don't know why we have to do every other bus seat anymore. And I'm wondering if there's a role for the board as advocates to be very clear to our local public health director on what the limitations are that are preventing us from having more students on campus. And it seems like the 6 feet is one of them. It seems like if we didn't have every other seat on the bus, we could do a lot more with transportation. And I'm wondering if there's a role for the board to play to be very, very clear with our local public health director that we need to be more aggressive in loosening those restrictions in a school setting, particularly since the data and the science show that schools are safe places to be, children are safe. All of our adults that are chosen to be vaccinated have been vaccinated. It's just something I want to throw out there.
A couple of things, President Van Sant. One is, I think having some guidance around it when people have been vaccinated, what does that mean for all of these guidelines would be really helpful, because things have been pretty silent about that. I know the CDC came out with some statements last week about vaccinations, but we fall under the California Department of Public Health guidance, which rolls into our local public health department and then our COVID safety plan. So I think the California Department of Public Health is probably the most appropriate person or group to advocate to, as well as our local public health officer.
And I hear that, and I agree, and I don't want to add more work to anyone's plate, but I don't know why I'm offering this. I may be willing to draft something myself. I don't really want to, but I could, because I do feel like Deb, you and the principals have been so focused on like just jumping through the hoops that are being given to you that I think it's really important to pause and say, is this a realistic hoop? Because some of your hoops no longer are realistic, and you're spending so much time trying to jump through them. And I feel like as a board and as an advocate and as an elected official, we should be saying, get rid of that hoop. That's ridiculous. You don't need to do that anymore. And the impact of an unrealistic hoop is that children are not on campus as much as they need to be. So I just think the time is now to start having those conversations. The pandemic is changing rapidly in a different direction than it had been going. And now is the time to start pushing. 6 feet doesn't make sense anymore. This is what we could do with 3 feet. This is what we could do with a kid on every bus seat, not every other bus. And again, I keep going back to, it is parental choice about whether to put their children in that environment. Parents who choose to put their children in that environment have rights too. And if they're comfortable with a classroom of 15 or 20 kids, then we need to listen to those parents as well. And I know this is not directed at you because you all are having to follow all your guidelines, but you're so focused on the hoops, as you should be. It might be the role of the board to start questioning the hoops you have to jump through, not on your level, but at the state and local level. So with that, I don't know if there's any more on this presentation. Trustee Mulgard?
Well, I was going to actually ask if the superintendent, can just bring this up directly with the public health officer, or would she like a couple of us to draft a letter and have it adopted by the board in a special meeting and then sent? Whatever her preference is to think that it would have the most impact.
I'm just wondering if the local public health officer is the appropriate place, because I feel like the guidance gets set from the California Department of Public Health, and then it gets, adopted through the local public health officer. So I mean, our COVID safety plan is completely based off of the flow of the CDPH guidance. So I could think about that a bit and get back to you.
I mean, I think the target is not necessarily locally, it might be state, but I think if we also as a board become complacent and we just get tired of this and we don't keep saying this is a barrier, then we're not really doing our students a favor here. And or doing our duty really. I guess what I'm feeling is something very, very clear that 6 feet no longer is supported by the science. It needs to be 3 feet or less or gone. Every other student on the bus, I mean, if that's what we think, I'm just making stuff up right now, but every other student on the bus is no longer supported by science. It can be every student on the bus. And again, just say, these are the changes we need to make for the state to accomplish their goals of getting more kids in campus. Because from the very beginning, Deb, you have been saying, you put these guidance up a state, and then we have to implement them. And the real world impact of your guidance is that we can't bring more than 15 kids in the classroom or whatever it is. And I think that at the state level, you create laws or you create rules, and implementing them in the school campus has a significant impact. And I just don't believe people are thinking about it as with the same sense of urgency that they should be about the rules they are putting in place that are no longer supported by science. Trustee Barrett.
I'm just wondering, I'm going to attend the legislative action, whatever it is, next week with Tyler. And I think Deb is also. I was wondering, is that a place we should bring this up?
Normally, the group that you're representing asks you to use their talking points. I certainly think it's an opportunity for us to pass along a pamphlet and maybe ask for a meeting later with our legislators or their local representatives. But not being able to have high school open and the hoops that Gordon and his staff are having to jump through are pretty extraordinary. And I think that we should at least take a moment to share that part of our story. But we need to be cautious about dominating those visits.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's the 6 feet is too much. I don't know what's going on at lunch, but it seems like they've made it basically impossible to give students lunch. That seems insane. I'm not sure what the specific change needs to be. And again, the buses, I don't know why we can only put a few people in a bus. We need to be able to put more in a bus. I feel like the state is trying to give us money, which sure we'll take the money, but that's not actually what we need. We need a relaxation on the restrictions.
Mm-hmm.
Trustee Mulgard.
I just want to make sure that the public knows that we would be happy to send more buses or multiple buses. We do not have bus drivers with the proper qualifications to legally take students. So if any of you are out there with that qualification and have been laid off from another job, please come on in.
Right. And we'd also probably need twice the number of buses. I mean, to keep the very limited number of students that are allowed to be on a bus.
And Megan, if might just put some words in your mouth. You said it sounded like you were just making rules up, but I think that your thrust was, we want to follow best science. Best science says we can have more kids on the bus. Best science says we can have closer desks. So science first, science last.
And I just want to clarify, we can go down to 4 feet with plexiglass barriers, which we have done in some cases, but we still have the high school classrooms are 900 square feet. And so there are limitations to how many students we can put in there with that distancing.
I think the other message, Deb, as you mentioned, is that the guidelines need to be radically changed if every adult has been given the opportunity to be vaccinated. I mean, the studies are clear. There are school districts that have had 100,000 kids on campus in some of these places in the South where they didn't follow a lot of rules, and there's literally been not a single case of COVID that resulted in hospitalization. I mean, we know now that it's safe for children to be together, particularly if the parents have an option to opt out of it. And it's unconscionable that we're still in this situation and that you have to go through so many crazy things you have to do to try to bring students back to campus. So with that, though, I want to couple that again with complete gratitude for everything you're doing. I'm really blown away every day by how hard you're working and how all of you and the administrative level and the teachers and the classified are really their daily reality has been blown wide open, and they've had to do things completely different than they normally do. And I really do appreciate that.
We're very lucky. We have an awesome team. So, and that can-do spirit is right up there. And I mentioned it to Brian, and it's really appreciated. I appreciate everybody very much.
Okay. Is there any more on this particular agenda item? That was the reopening update. I don't really want to interrupt the flow, but do people feel like they need a break? Everyone's looking blank, neither shaking or, okay, I'm gonna do a 5-minute break, just 5 minutes. Okay, so maybe 6. I think that, so let's reconvene at 8:05, or not reconvene. You can mute and turn your video off and we'll come back at 8:05. Is that okay, Deb? Okay, thanks. Ian, I think we're ready to come back. So I guess you could move that thing. Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
There you go. I just figured it was easier to have that up rather than just a blank screen.
No, I totally appreciate it. Thanks. So it looks like we're back. I think we've got everybody. I'm going to give B a minute and then Gordon as well, because I think
I don't see Ann on either currently.
I see her now. Isn't that her with her picture up?
Well, that's her.
Oh, that's her,
picture
like,
for
right,
muted
okay.
camera.
While we're waiting for Ann to come on screen again, we're going to shift to E3 and then go back to the secondary athletics report so that Gordon can finish up his work with us and log off and finish the rest of his evening. So I think I'm not going to wait for Ann anymore. I'll just have us start if that's okay.
Yes, so we're going to just kind of talk you through this one. This is our LCAP update. So we attached several documents that were created prior to the pandemic. As you all know, we had a very rigorous process to create our new 3-year strategic plan. About a year and a half ago, we started, and we were almost finished with that when we went to distance learning. So we brought these plans to the board last spring, and we've been implementing as much as we can of these plans. The state pushed pause on the LCAP process, and so, but we now have an LCAP due in June. So we've attached those documents just to refresh the board's memory on them. You also saw the funded positions for next year, and you made a decision about that. So this is really an information item. We've got the timeline attached to the LCAP as well. Right now, we're gathering stakeholder input. And what we really want to capture is, what have we done well in the last year during distance learning that we want to continue into non-distance learning times? So that's what we're really trying to capture. And then we know that we're going to need to step up related to summer programs, tutoring programs, everything else that students are going to need coming out of this pandemic. So I just wanted to update you on that. We're a little bit behind on our timeline than we normally bring you a draft of something in February. So we will have a draft in April, and you'll have plenty of opportunity as a board to give input into that draft. I'm really proud, as we dug through our previous documents we created, I know one of our goals was to try and stay focused, not have a 37-page plan. And I'm really proud of us because we did that. And I want to make sure that we're continuing to honor that, that focus as we move forward as well. We're going to talk about budget later, but with some of the new money, it requires stakeholder feedback and another plan. And if there's anything you can help us when you're advocating with our lawmakers is, I'd love for everybody to take a look at how many plans we've written this year and rewritten, and how many new plans we've had to do. And this new money, the 4.4 million that we're getting we have to create a new plan. And so we're rolling the feedback process into our stakeholder feedback process for the LCAP, just so we don't have to do that also. It would be really smart of the state if they made the plan be part of the LCAP, because then it's more integrated, but that's not the case. So we will be creating another plan. I'm sorry, Katie. Katie's going to lose it pretty soon. I've told our lawmakers that we are suffering from plan fatigue. And so if you can help us pass that message, that would be really great. But with the LCAP, and you can ask any questions about that, but with the LCAP, our previous LCAP had an item in it that said, look at alternative schedules for secondary schools. And as I've reflected on that, we've done a lot in that area, actually. So the first thing we did was we changed the start times of our high school and Eagle Peak Middle School a long time ago, but we did do that. We changed the schedule at Eagle Peak. We converted that school to a STEM magnet program, added in a boost period to their schedule. So it did change their schedule. Most recently at Pomalita, they added an advisory period into their schedule. And then South Valley, big picture learning in Ukiah, South Valley has dramatically changed their schedule because of their instructional programs. So, and I think you all know that the high school has been looking at alternative schedules for probably close to, when you take the pandemic out, 1.5 to 2 years. They pushed pause on that with the pandemic. They were getting ready, as our amazing student who was on today, she talked about how she was 1 year ago ready to go visit Windsor High School to look at the 8-period block schedule that they have. And Windsor canceled because we were all shifting to distance learning. And so the high school pushed pause on that, but at the urging of the staff and knowing that we potentially would be in distance learning again this year, and knowing how difficult it is to manage 6 classes at a time in distance learning, the staff at Ukiah High shifted to a 4x4 block schedule this year. So kids were only taking 4 classes at a time. That particular schedule has had a lot of benefits for this year. The biggest one being the ability of a student to manage 4 classes at a time as opposed to 6, but it also had some flaws in it. So the high school picked up in January their work to gather stakeholder feedback on what a long-term schedule would look like. And so they sent a recommendation to me to move to an 8-period block schedule and moving forward into next year. And they would sit with that going forward, not just next year, but going forward. They have had, they have offered up focus groups. They've done focus groups with parents and with students, and also including incoming 8th grade or incoming 9th grade families, so current 8th grade families. And so you were able to read the recommendation from Principal Osland. They also worked with their staff. Their site-based decision-making team is making the recommendation to the district that they move next year to an 8-period block schedule. We included the schedule in the board packet so you could see what it would look like. And with that, I think I will stop and ask if Principal Osland wants to add anything. There are some dangling pieces out there that we need to define and as well. So Principal Osland, do you have anything that you would like to add?
Not much. Thank you for the summary. It's a good process, long process, interrupted by the pandemic. And remarkably, I think it was 1 year ago that Emma and some other students and faculty were scheduled for that trip. And the site-based decision-making team, which also is our leadership team, they met a lot, they worked a lot. We looked at a lot of different models, and it was a good process. The parent and student focus groups included 12 parent meetings, 6 in English, 6 in Spanish, and then 6 student meetings, and they were done in 2 phases. One looking at, in the general terms of talking about support and schedule and learning and how learning works best for you. And then going on and test modeling 5 different models, 2 6-period, a 7-period, a 4x4, and the 8-period AAB block. And in the end, the second round of focus groups were actually a lot of fun because I characterize it as truly what a focus group does is I'm going to show you 5 different labels to a Pepsi can and you're going to react. And people were really good at that, both students and parents. The students were frightening. I can tell you who should be a high school administrator after meeting with them because some of them took a lot of joy in it, actually. And so in the end, their summations were also very universal. The comments were quite universal and the summations were universal. And the summations were that that an 8-period AB block or a 4x4, either one, they would support. You know, a distant or not too distant second place was 7 periods, and then off the table for virtually everybody was any option with 6 periods. And so the number of people that I haven't been in a process where the public opinion was so near unanimous. And I say that only because it was just striking, and being able to bring that back to the staff and to the leadership team, that helped clarify things. And then the second issue is that what folks wanted and what they saw in the schedule was also great to listen to, super instructive. It's ending up in the model, and all of that input is actually the most critical basis of what we're trying to do. And then you look at other schools, and there's a real interesting feature. I think the 8AB, in addition to being in Windsor, it's a fairly prominent schedule in Orange County, San Diego County, and much more so than the 4x4. And I know there was great interest in the 4x4. And as Deb said, there's merit to that, but the schools in Southern California, in reading what they decided in their process, similar to what we were looking at, and that is we have a strong need to provide robust support, super critical, during the school day. That's an equity issue. And those schools there that chose this schedule over a 4x4 were in the same position. And so the report that I provided, the recommendation that I provided her, was produced jointly with a site-based decision-making team, based upon a lot of input. And I'm super excited. I'm not going to have, Dara's enthusiasm at this point in the evening, but it's been a long, long time since we've been presented with the opportunity to make the significant changes to improve the lives of students. This is a big, big deal. And I think that the enthusiasm that, there's going to be people out there that don't like it, but the enthusiasm of the people that like it, there's a lot of creativity happening and a lot of thinking about how we can be transformative. And so I think coming out of a pandemic and coming back on campus and being able to provide what we're going to be able to provide, it's pretty darn exciting. I mean, I'll leave it to the questions. It's a good thing.
Okay, thank you. Questions from the board? Trustee Nelson, and then Trustee Fernandez.
Homework, I think you've mentioned it. I've heard it in the air. What's the plan with homework? I know the board has a policy. I think we had to pull that and review it, but I'm wondering what conversations you and site council and the students and teachers have had about homework.
That in this schedule, when you go to and essentially an 8AB is like a 4x4, but you're stretching it out, right? And so in this schedule, the biggest challenge is limitations in placing intelligent limits on, if you think about a buffet, it's about making sure there's two things, and I'll get to homework on the second part. The first thing is that most schools you place limits on the classes or the types of classes that kids are accessing, so that if the goal is choice and programs and diversity, et cetera, you can achieve that. And I think we can intelligently do that. The second part is that homework policy. And, the board policy, I think my last read on it was 120 minutes per night. And I'm going to push the staff from a perspective that, one, I would challenge just, to be bold, I would challenge the value of homework. And some of our teachers have said that we're moving away from that. And it isn't that their homework is unnecessary. It's just, I'm not sure that homework contributes nearly as much as some people might think it does. And so I don't want to be too controversial on that, but Trustee Nelson, what I would say is fully committed to do that, to find that, and then get people to make that migration. There's some migrations that are going to have to occur. Homework is one of them. How much curriculum you can deliver, because it is slightly fewer minutes than you would have in a 7 and even more than a 6. And so I've heard, I know that's a concern of a number of board of trustees here is homework. And that and any other concerns within that, I think are important to state, because that helps us do our job, because I do not want kids to be overwhelmed. That's not the point of this plan.
Can I add on AP classes? Limiting what hell students put themselves through because they think it's gonna, I'm not sure what they're thinking. It makes people crazy. And then there's the competitive aspect. I want to help save parents from themselves and kids from themselves, just because it's a lot when people are taking 3 and potentially 4 AP classes. It's rough.
Yeah, I think we're keenly aware of that as well. And I think that, one of the things that I think is an important inclusion into the plan is that any student with 2 or more AP classes is forced to have an independent, essentially a reading period, a study period. They're intelligent enough to handle the time, and we have a beautiful library. If they want to do it at home, I'm okay with that. But we have a beautiful library, and I can trust that they can be in there. And we have adults that work in there, and they'll be great role models for the rest of the school. And I think that the era of a library that is more sterile and doesn't have that feature of kids that know their job and they're doing their job, that ended a long time ago, but most high schools didn't migrate off of that. But we have a beautiful facility. And I think that we're offering great things, but sometimes you're absolutely correct that the limitations are critical. And I think being able to walk into a high school library in any period and see those kids in there that are studying, it's a benefit to them and it's a benefit to us. It's a joy. We have the facility and we need to use it. And I think that's a good first step. And then there are other things that we're working on within that. I mean, there's a lot of intricacies there. And as I said, I'm excited to do the work as the team is. But I think that you're hitting on what should be the greatest concern for the student well-being, which is balance. I think that the other thing is incentivizing kids taking advantage of the programs. This board has been extremely generous, investing in CTE or maintaining the investment in CTE. The state has been fantastic. Our own Senator McGuire has funded millions to our CTE program at Ukiah High School. We have the best on the North Coast, one of the best in Northern California. You all have invested heavily in the arts, and we need to be able to grow those programs. And I think that richness and that diversity is good for all kids. And if you want to change those programs and grow those programs, include all programs. And I state that after your comment, Trustee Nelson, because I think that when you put those kids who think that it's all about AP and you put them in a CTE class, a shop class, or they have the opportunity to take band and it's not interrupted during their sophomore year, all of those things, you're going to see an explosion in the programs that I just described. And it's going to be positive because the competitive energy in there, and those are courses that don't require homework and don't require the type of concern that you've expressed. And so that's all part of the excitement that I share with this. We've invested heavily, you've invested heavily, it's much appreciated. And now it's time to make the yield much greater.
Thank you. Trustee Fernandez?
Thank you. I know you guys have done a lot of work, and I'm excited to see the schedule change. I think it would be great for the students. I too share the homework concern because I think that sometimes teachers can have the best intentions, but it ends up, when you have 8 of them, it can end up being a lot of homework. So I was wondering, Deb, what Tyler was saying, our current homework board policy, do you think you could pull that and then maybe bring back high school recommendations for a first reading, maybe May, and we could finalize it in June so that the high school would have some buy-in on that?
Yes, we could bring a first reading back in May. We couldn't bring it back in April. It's just too quick.
That's fine.
And
well, you'd need to have the high school.
Yeah, and then we could bring the final reading back in June. It would be good to start the year with the policy is clear. But to start with a policy that's changed that accommodates the 8.
And then the other thing, I know I think I've heard this answered, but I was happy to hear that just because it's an 8-period schedule doesn't mean that students have to take 8 classes, that they can take fewer if that works for them, or they're met their requirements. And even leave early or come late. I think that flexibility will be really great for students. So thank you for doing all this work with the schedule. I'm looking forward to seeing how it goes next year.
Thank you.
Any other questions from trustees? Trustee Barrett? You're muted.
I can't hear. So I was wondering about the periods that a teacher teaches. They each teach 3 periods then, is that correct?
So each day there are 4 classes, like a 4x4, and a total of 8 classes, and teachers teach 3 each day and have 1 prep each day.
So how long, I mean, does that give teachers more prep time than they've had previously? Because then a quarter of their day is prep.
It would be, the classes are likely to be 90 minutes. And so it would be, currently they're 56 minutes or so. And so, yes, it would be 34 minutes.
34 minute, you mean 34 minutes more per day?
Yeah.
For prep?
Yeah. And I think, yeah, it's 90 minutes. It's in the, it's per the contract. It's also common. It's also what's happening this year. And by common, I mean other schools that are either 4x4 or have an 8-period AB. And some schools actually, even that have 7-period, that have alternating block days, also have they have 2 of those 7 that are prep. So at the high school level, it is fairly common.
Can I just, so I see you, Deb, in just a second, but I just want to make sure I understand that. So does that mean that the teacher is teaching 7 classes rather than 5?
No,
but they have a
6 rather than 5.
Okay, so 6 rather than 5, but they have a longer prep, like time-wise, longer prep period.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Now, wouldn't that have to be negotiated?
Yeah, I was wondering about that too.
That's what I was going to add. We have Nicole contacted UTA to set up a meeting to look at any working condition impacts. We know that the contract currently states that teachers will get 1 prep period per day. So it's not necessarily the prep period, but we will be sitting down and looking at this schedule holistically with UTA and the high school, just to make sure we didn't miss anything regarding working conditions.
Great.
So I know that like elementary teachers only get a half hour or 35 minutes a day. So that's a considerable difference.
It's hard to compare the elementary schools with the high school because they have a lot more time after school before their contract ends. They have a 30-minute prep period during the school day. The high school, I believe, has 15 minutes after school before when the school gets out and their contract time ends. So it's just hard to compare the 2 systems.
Okay.
And what we want to look for is, what does the contract say, and does this schedule have any working condition impacts?
Okay. Any other comments from trustees? Thank you, Gordon, for that. I'm really excited to see this change as well, and I appreciate your staff in being kind of this is a more rapid change than usually these things take. So I'm really excited to see a quick change and the commitment to it. And I also just want to give you a shout out for doing all those parent meetings. I didn't attend any because I was too tired, but I know you were tired too. So the fact that you did them all, being so tired, I just want to give you a kudos for that. Thank you. That's an extra effort you went to, and I definitely noticed it. So.
Well, thank you. And yeah, I was tired in the beginning, but I was always really inspired and alive at the end of the meeting, seriously. And so if there's any parents that were at the meetings that were listening, or the students, it was a joy. It was a real joy.
Thank you. So this item was about the LCAP in general. We sort of focused on schedules. Is there anything else, Deb, we need to talk about in terms, we're not approving anything?
No, we're just sort of updating on the timeline where we are with things. We will be coming back with something more concrete at the next meeting, and we are rolling in the feedback process on the 4.4 million that we're required to get. So we'll be sharing all of that feedback with you at the next board meeting.
Great. Okay. Thank you. I think that concludes that agenda item E3, and we can let Gordon go. Thank you, Gordon, for spending some time with us this evening. You're welcome to stay.
Oh, thank you.
You want to do. We're moving on to E2, the approval of the UUSD COVID-19 plan for secondary athletics.
Yes, so we have attached the plan. We have used the California Department of Public Health guidance for youth sports to create this plan. We have shared this plan with our local public health officer who has approved it, and we are looking for board approval.
Are there any questions or concerns about the plan for secondary athletics? Trustee Fernandez?
I say kudos to you guys for really doing as much as you can to get kids playing all kinds of sports. And I know some people question some of those sports, but I say it's parental choice, and just like remote learning is, and you can choose to have your child play a sport or not. And I really appreciate that it's an option for those families who want to do it. So thanks for doing that.
Any other questions or comments about the plan for secondary athletics?
I move approval of the plan.
I'd second that.
Moved by Trustee Mulgard, seconded by Fernandez. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Any abstentions? No. Okay, thank you, Deb, and thanks for your work on getting that plan done. And let's hope it's becomes irrelevant within a couple months.
Yes.
Thank you. All right. Okay, so let's move on to D1. Steve's been patiently waiting to do the second interim budget report. This is not an action item. It's just a report on where we are at second interim.
Actually, no, it is an action item.
It is? Oh, okay. Then we will be approving it at some point.
So let's hope so. Okay, great. Good evening. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here. It feels like a long time since we've talked about budget, but actually it's only been 3 months. So it's been a busy 3 months, and a lot has changed with our budget since 3 months ago. A lot has changed since second interim was developed. A lot changed today. So it's a lot going on with our budget. So we'll give you an update of where we were at second interim. Again, second interim is kind of where our budget stands through January 31st, which, like I said, feels a long way away at this point. So for this evening, we'll kind of review the budget cycle like we always do. We'll talk about what's new with second interim. We will look at the general fund and the multi-year projections, and we'll talk about the other funds. Then we're going to talk about some of the new monies we've got briefly, and a couple things we need you to approve tonight, and then we'll talk about what's next. So in terms of the budget cycle, you see we're down past 6 o'clock, heading our way towards 7 o'clock here. We're doing the second interim budget report tonight. The biggest thing that's really changed since first interim back in December is we've gotten the governor's budget proposal for next year. Now, as you'll recall, that doesn't always mean a whole lot. Last year, we had this really rosy budget projection from the governor in January, and then things kind of changed a month or two later. So while we're excited that this year's budget proposal is also very rosy and positive, we also know that that can change by the time we get to May, and more importantly, when we get to June and the actual adopted budget. So the biggest thing in terms of our budget really is that the LCFF COLA, the local control funding formula, which is kind of the basis for school district funding, was projecting a 0% COLA all the way up through December. With the January budget proposal, it is now at 3.84%. That's a combination of 2.31% for this year that was never funded and 1.5% for next year. And when you compound those two, it adds up to 3.84%. The other state programs will get a 1.5% COLA. Again, this is what's projected. And then for 2022-23, they're projecting a 2.98% COLA. And as you know, while those numbers are really good and positive for us, those numbers also have other budget implications for us as we get down the road. We won't get into all of those tonight because, again, it's a little bit too early. But definitely good news compared to 0%. We'll also talk about ESSER 2, which was the first of the new funds that we had heard about that was actually approved before we built this budget. A lot of other new funds have happened since we built this budget, and we'll talk about those as well. And then we've also approved the Chanel Valley Academy for 2021-22, and that will have a bit of an impact on our budget. So looking at the general fund, the unrestricted side, this chart's always kind of interesting. We try to tell you whether it's a favorable or unfavorable change, and that's kind of in the eye of the beholder. So theoretically, if revenues go up, that's a favorable change. If expenses go down, that's a favorable change. in one case here where our transfers out did increase by $470,000. On one hand, that may not be a good thing, but the fact that we're able to put it into Fund 17, our savings account, and have the full 9% sitting there is actually very much a positive thing for us. Very favorable change. All told, our ending total reserve percentage at the end now projects to be 9.3%. That's up almost 0.75% from first interim. So back to that 9% board mandated level plus a little bit extra. And if you have any questions as I'm going through, feel free to let me know. Jumping to the multi-year projections, multi-year is always kind of fascinating because typically, a little glimpse behind the curtain, we typically kind of just take this year's expenses and we say, okay, what do we know is really changing next year? And we add or subtract those things based on what we think is going to happen. Well, 2020-21 isn't a typical year. We don't really have a good foundation because it's been so skewed with one-time monies and because we haven't been in person all year. It's really not the best foundation to use. So then you would go back to the prior year. Well, we didn't get through a whole year last year either before we went to a hybrid model or a distance learning model. So we really don't have a good platform to build that 21-22 and 22-23 budget models. So it's a little bit of guesswork on our parts, and really our job now between now and June is to really build that budget for real. So while things look good here, it's going to change by the time you see it again in June. On the plus side, you see.
Can I just ask a quick question there, since
Sure.
we're on that? So this caught my attention because our ending fund balance in 1920 was really high, and I was kind of remembering that, and I was remembering it's because kind of school grinded to a halt, and a lot of the typical expenses we would normally have had didn't materialize. If that's, I mean, that might be a kind of broad brush way to put it, but are we taking that into consideration in 2021, given that most of the school year was in this very different format?
Yeah, we did, except that we really couldn't really ratchet the budgets down maybe as far as we maybe could have for the rest of the year, because we knew we were coming back to hybrid. We're not sure if we're going to need to come back to more than that. We're not sure how much money we're going to spend. Are we going to do athletic? We weren't sure about athletic transportation at that point, about field trips, about a lot of expenses. So we couldn't tighten things up as much as we might have been able to, just because of the uncertainty still. But yes, in theory, you're right. That's exactly what's kind of happening.
Okay.
Did I answer that very well?
Yeah, I'm just noticing the books and supplies line, which if I remember is a convenient place to put when you're a little bit unsure about exactly what the expenditures would be. That's if I remember, that's the account string you often put stuff in. So that's where I'm seeing that extra $4 million.
Yes, there's a lot of unallocated funds still sitting in there. Things will look better by the time we get to June than they look even now.
But then my last question, but for the benefit of the public, if they're there, but this multi-year projection does not include ESSER funds and all the one-time funds. Is that correct?
It does include the ESSER 2 funds that the federal government signed off on December 29th. It does not include anything else, the state money or the ESSER 3 funds that we just found out about today. It does not include those. And those would also be on the restricted side of the budget more than on the unrestricted side here. We're really just showing you the unrestricted side right now. And again, so it will get better. Yeah, we did finish last year with a very healthy balance. Some of that got spent by the raises we gave this year due to the formula. So that causes some of the deficit spending that lowers that balance. But again, like you said, when all is said and done, this will still come out better than it shows now. And it's already improved from first interim until now. You can see at first interim, we thought we'd have $187,000 left in the unrestricted general fund. Now we're at 467. And really, when you look at the multi-year, it's really where the difference gets pretty staggering. You see, we thought we'd end 21-22 with 140,000, and now we're projecting 720,000. And 22-23 with those COLAs there from the state, instead of $140,000 ending balance, we're going to have 1.2 million. So, but again, there's a lot of things that aren't necessarily included in here yet that will be triggered based on the new revenue. So again, looking at our reserves, you can kind of see that we're going to finish this year with a 9.3% reserve. As of right now, 9.66% for next year and 10.28 for 22-23. And you see the shaded areas where we were at first interim. We were below 9% all 3 years. We were well below 9% in 22-23. So the multi-year is definitely looking better than it did 3 months ago. Looking at the other funds briefly, you can see the Adult Education Fund has had a very healthy bump. That is because they've received a lot of one-time funds from the state as well, excuse me, from the federal government as well. It's called the HERF funds, the Higher Education Emergency Relief Funds. So they have their own acronym, their own funding stream. That got them some extra one-time money as well. And the cafeteria fund is also much healthier than we projected. State funding is funding at a higher level, and because of the crazy volumes of food we're distributing, that reserve or that fund has gotten much healthier, which is a good thing because we typically don't operate that way on a normal year. So brief recap of the old COVID related monies. And I think we last talked about those in November or December, and the board had budgeted all of those out, had approved all of the budgets. There was the Coronavirus Relief Fund, almost 5.6 million. That money initially had to be spent by December 30th. So we scrambled to get that all done. And then they came out like December 20th and said, oh, we'll give you some more time to spend that. And we're like, well gee, we've spent it, but thank you. The main uses for that were hardware and software. A lot of Chromebooks, 6,000 Chromebooks-ish, a lot of software, and then furniture and supplies. We also had the Prop 98, or the State Learning Loss Mitigation Fund, for another 536,000. At this point, that's 77% spent or encumbered. And that's been mainly used for instructional materials and supplies, and for staff and materials to support tutoring and in-person activities. We also had the GEAR funds. GEAR is the Governor's Emergency Education Relief. That's 43% spent and encumbered. And that's been mainly used for staff time to prepare for in-person learning. And we'll bring you back full recaps on all these funds next month. You haven't seen them in a while. The last couple pots of old COVID related monies, the initial ESSER fund. ESSER is the Elementary and Secondary School Emergency Relief Fund. You know, we love our acronyms. That's 76% spent and encumbered. Again, the main uses of that are technology, especially the hotspots, and also a lot of the in-person and after-school activities we've been doing. And last but not least, the one pot of money that has no deadline to spend, the $99,000 from the state. And we're going to use that, we think, for the online learning licenses and other technology for 21-22. So at this point, that was all the money we knew about for additional monies from the state and the federal government to deal with the pandemic. Well, that changed again in late December with the ESSER 2 funds, $5,727,000 for coronavirus preparation and response, kind of broadly defined to address school needs and address the needs of at-risk students. And they even kind of acknowledge that pretty much all students are at risk at this point, right? It's been a year of not being on campus, not being in classrooms where they should be. And so kind of everybody falls under the at-risk category. Then we found out about the new state money just in the last week or so. There are two different pots. There's the in-person instruction grant, a little over almost 2.1 million, and the expanded learning opportunity grant, almost 4.7 million. Those are to accelerate learning and address student needs, to extend learning time, as before school, after school, summer school, anything we can do to get more time with students, and for programs to address social emotional learning. So in our heads, we're thinking a lot of that's going to be for summer school, like I said, and for some get tutoring started as soon as we come back to school in the fall. And again, we'll come back to you with some detailed proposals on that money next month. So there are a few things we need you to go ahead and approve tonight in terms of the ESSER 2 budget. We know, again, we'll bring you the full budget for that next month to start talking about and give you the chance to provide input on and give us some feedback. But there are some things we needed to go ahead and approve tonight and that are included in second interim. There's $219,000 so we can continue our after school programs through the end of May with the city, with Space, and with the Boys and Girls Club. We needed to go ahead and buy the software we're using for our COVID testing. It's a software package called Primary. We estimate that to be about $104,000 for the rest of the year. And then we're using some of this money to help provide daycare for staff at the sites. So we do need you to approve those expenditures out of the ESSER 2 funds tonight. That's what, $333,000 out of the 5.7 million. And again, if we want to change which pot of money that gets funded out of down the road, we certainly can do that. This is just a budget, and like all of our budgets, it's just a point in time. And with that, like I say, we found out today that from the, I forget what the president's calling these funds, but there's another round of ESSER funding that's called ESSER 3. We're going to receive a considerable chunk of money from that. There's also some other money earmarked for schools for special education, for adult education, and for child development preschool education. So again, it's so new, we don't even have real numbers yet on all of those things, but they're going to be substantial. We'll keep working on our 2021 estimated actuals so that when we come to you in May and June, we have a more ratcheted down budget for this year. And we're going to start working on the 21-22 budget in earnest, like we said. Potential areas for concern as we move forward. Again, we had really rosy projections from the state last January that didn't work out so well. If those budget COLAs that are currently included don't materialize, and school services says, especially in that second year out, they don't trust that 2.98% the state is projecting right now. They think we should be more conservative than that. So again, anything that happens that reduces those impacts our budget. The new charter school opening will impact our enrollment. We're just not sure how much, and our ADA, that remains to be seen. We're also not sure what's going to happen with enrollment in general, right? We lost a lot of young students this year. A lot of kindergartners and first graders didn't show up because of the pandemic. Will we reclaim those kids? Will kids still choose not to come to Ukiah Unified? It's really hard to know until we actually get enrollment information from the sites. So we'll be monitoring that pretty closely. On the positive side, if our enrollment does decline, we'll still be funded off of our 2019-2020 ADA for one more year. So that gives us a little bit of a cushion. And so with that, I can stop sharing and turn it over to any questions or comments.
Questions or comments? Trustee Nelson?
Steve, that was brutal this evening in the background. I'm so ready to come back and talk to you guys in person. Your competition was Love Actually, one of my favorite rom-coms. So it was rough. But I was hanging on your every word. One question that I have, sorry, it was really catching me. I'm surprised I didn't get teary-eyed, actually. So the economy's been going gangbusters for quite some time. Inevitably, especially with all this incredible spending our government's doing, it's going to turn around. Hopefully it's not gnarly, but I'm wondering that reserve that we have, to be conservative, it seems like this is the time that we want to grow it if it's possible, and I'm wondering how you're feeling about that.
You're asking Steve Berkman if he'd like to grow reserve. I can answer for him.
Please.
It seems like a good time. We know that there's going to be some really rough stuff around the corner. How hard should we push for it?
You know, I think that's a great question because, yeah, the outlook is pretty rosy right now for the next 2 or 3 years, but we know it's cyclical and we know that it's going to turn back down around at some point. And so, yeah, if we can bump up our reserves, you know, 9% is 3 times the amount the state requires, but it's actually less than the average school district reserve in the state. I think the last time school services came out with numbers was for 1920. The typical reserve in the state is around 17%. So I think we'd all sleep a little better if we were up around 12, 13, 15% maybe. It won't be easy to get there. I think we can be creative with how we use some of these one-time funds that we're swimming in the next couple of years. What pressure can we take off the general fund to help build up those reserves? I think that's a great thing to keep in mind, because you're right. It's not if it's going to turn around at some point, it's when.
Other questions or comments from the board? So I have a proposal. I'm thinking along a completely different line than Tyler. I think that we're being faced with possibly more than $20 million in additional funding that we hadn't expected from state and federal sources. And I think that this is an opportunity we're never going to have again, as long as any of us are on the board, and hopefully, honestly, hopefully not in our lifetimes. And we're having this like unexpected infusion of funding at the same time we have students that are having impacts that we don't even know what they are yet, because they haven't come back to the classroom to really understand what those impacts are. And our administration is super tired and just trying to like make it through each day and all the changes that are coming. So all those factors together is not really a great time to be really strategic and really creative and kind of think really carefully about this, but I kind of feel like we have to. So I've been a little bit concerned even from the first time you brought the budget before us with the ESSER 1, and we were like, oh, all this money, what should we do? Let's do this, let's do that. And we were kind of like, wow, where is the big picture strategy here? And I think that's only gotten more, that need has only grown since we've had these new rounds of funding. So I would like sometimes for the board to focus only on what are we doing with our extra money, so we can be sure that we're giving direction to the staff on what philosophy they should be using to spend this money. And you know, what I'm thinking is like, priority is always going to have to be what do the kids need, what you know, it's really is supposed to be to mitigate the impacts on children. And I don't really know what our philosophical framework should be, but I think that as a board we owe it to our tired leaders to give them a framework to work with when they're trying to figure out what to do with an extraordinary, unusual, and flexible pool of a lot of funding.
And I think that's great. And yeah, I think that's a really good idea. I know I certainly have a list going. I know Christy has a list going, and I'm sure you guys have lists as well of things that maybe we'd never get to do otherwise that would make a real difference. You know, we've got $75 million in bond money to spend and $200 million list of projects to do. Well, part of this new money can be used on HVAC upgrades and systems. It can be used for some outdoor educational areas. Can we get some shade structures at the sites? Can we use some of this money to do things we can't really afford to do out of the bond? That might be a really good use, and that's kind of making it a lasting difference in the district rather than a one-time short-term difference.
I agree. Trustee Mulgard?
Well, I do think there's so much, but I also don't want to just everybody throws up their lists and votes with dots kind of thing, because I think that there might be other things we're completely not even thinking of. Do your peers, Steve, have a networking group or something in which they're trading information about how to approach this amount of money?
You know, the big surprise today, I don't know that anybody's had time to think about yet today. I was pretty stunned when I saw the ESSER 3 funds, to be honest. I was not anticipating anywhere near that kind of money. And so it's going to take us a little time to get, I think, collectively with my peers throughout the state, what does this really mean for us? And how can we use this well? If I could circle back to Tyler's point really quick, I think we've been pretty strategic in some ways. We have taken some pressure off the general fund. Buying 6,000 Chromebooks out of this one-time money takes general fund pressure off the next 2 or 3 years. Upgrading staff technology, getting new classroom furniture, getting the outdoor furniture. Those are things that are going to last us a long time that we don't have to spend general fund dollars on in the next 2, 3, 4 years. That's huge.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think that was strategic, but it was also in some ways kind of low-hanging fruit. We were like, what can we buy? You know, and so we're past the low-hanging fruit stage, and now we got to figure out how to really be super intentional and creative here. And I think way far outside of the box. I think an HVAC system is an awesome, good idea. Definitely a place like Pomalita that we've needed it forever would make a ton of sense. But I also wonder what creative ideas we haven't thought about. I personally, and I'm not saying like I can see the future or whatever, but I knew that the ESSER money for the American was going to be huge, because it's happening in every single factor where the federal government can shove money. They're putting an enormous amount of money. And I think that the intention is this is time for societal change. You know, from the national level, this is an unusual moment as well. And what is really possible if you super fund, you know, the places that are most vulnerable, which right now are our children. And I want to really be really creative and really careful and intentional with this.
And at the same time, being creative who is that? Who's talking?
Carry on.
I
Yeah.
thought he was talking. I also want to look at other kind of finance methods that maybe there's something else that we should be doing to prepare for the next recession. And for all of the teachers who are listening, no, that does not mean I don't believe in raises, because I do. I want the highest paid teachers on the North Coast. But there might be, but we don't really need to plan for the next 2 years. We need to plan for that recession, Steve, like you were saying. And so I think there's a way to both be smart and strategic and plan for the next recession. So I'm hoping that you can think about how we can use outside experts or a consultant or a gopher. I don't want to usurp the superintendent's and the chief business officials' authority in any way, shape, or form. I just know the kind of hours that you all have been working this year. And so if you could get a retired fiscal officer or something like that to do some of this research for you, or to do surveys of all the different like-sized counties or like-sized districts, I hope you could come back with us at the next meeting with some recommendation to help us put that all together without you having to do all the legwork and all the thinking about how to structure the discussion.
I can definitely make some calls and have some conversations for sure.
So are board members opposed to a special board meeting that would only be an hour? And I'm thinking timing wise, Deb, would be up to you and Steve. I'm thinking probably at least a month away. I mean, it doesn't need to be immediately, after you've had time to kind of process what this new money might mean, what some ideas could be, and use the board to help. And the board needs to be committed to helping figure out a framework for how we're doing this. I'd like to look at it from kind of a policy perspective of the board. Like if we're going to say, and I'm making things up here, something like, out of the new money, we want to find a way to make sure that 20% of it can go into a place that functions like a reserve, something like that. Like we have, but so that we give you the guidelines you need to have coherence and how you're gonna work through this decision making.
No, that would be really good. The interesting thing is a lot of these funds have fairly
Deadlines.
aggressive timelines to spend. Like we have to spend it within 2 years. But then as we saw with the coronavirus relief funds, they gave us this December 30th deadline, saw that districts in the state couldn't spend it that fast, so they extended the deadline out.
And I think they'll do that again.
Yeah.
I mean, we can't count on it, but I think they'll do that again, because the impacts that our kids had in 1 year, the recovery from that is going to take 3 or 4 years. So really, and I think that even if that's not written into the legislation right now, someone will come to that conclusion. Not that we can totally count on that, but we need to think both ways. Like if we really had to keep to our deadline, what it would look like. If the deadline gets extended, what would it look like?
I really think it's important to think both ways too, because all it takes is one senator to flip 2 years. And we are back to, you heard the speeches about $1 trillion hasn't been spent the first time. Why are we doing this time? Mm-hmm. So at some point, they're going to say, no extensions. I don't think it will be for the next 2 years, but it sure as heck could be after that.
Which is all the more reason we have to be super careful and intentional in how we do this.
Right.
Superintendent Cuban?
I'll just add, it's been nice going to the school sites and seeing the long lasting effects of purchases that have been made through this funding. I mean, if you go to Ukiah High's campus right now, they have all these great new purple and gold tables, outdoor tables, benches everywhere. It's just been they're really thinking about what can we purchase that will help now, but also into the future. And I know something that has come up over and over again at our school sites is shade structures. I mean, it's in our plan. They also are bringing it up as we talk with them about LCAP needs and all of that as well. So we're happy to have a special board meeting. We have spring break in there though too, so we need to figure out the timing of it. But we will have some feedback from our school sites about.
Yeah, and my intention is not to make this more complicated than it is, but I do think that we need to recognize this for the really unusual moment that it is and give it the attention that it deserves for that reason, and find a way to do that without impacting you all too much.
Well, and I'm going to use the after school in-person activities as an example of a board setting a policy around, we came to you with some recommendations about counseling support, and you said, part of a student's mental health is getting them out of their houses and doing after school in-person activities. So spend money that way. And that was really helpful. And that is carried with us this entire time to be able to maximize that. So those types of policy decisions are helpful.
Okay, so unless I hear a strong objection from the board, I'll work with the superintendent and Steve to kind of figure out what that would look like. I don't, I'm exhausted and tired and have a lot going on too, so this is not gonna be a big burden for the board. It'll just be a time set aside specifically for this unusual moment. So it to me, it felt like it deserved attention in its own meeting.
But I also hope, President Van Sant, that we do consider getting some help.
I think that's a really great idea. So I follow up with, I don't know if you need that authority from the board, but if you did, is that something you would need board authority on if you were gonna hire some help to figure out how to do this?
I think technical assistance is already in the budget and hasn't been fully spent.
I'm sure it hasn't been fully spent.
Yeah,
So we're kind of springing this on you now, Deb and Steve. So obviously you might not think about it, but whatever support you need to be able to do a really intentional, creative job with this, it sounds like the board wants to support that.
And that's great. And I think a lot of the support groups that we currently have in place, like School Services of California, AXA, CASBO, we're all going to be having these conversations too. So I think we're all in the same boat. This is truly unprecedented. And you're right. So I appreciate your perspective that how do we deal with something that's never happened before? And it's going to take a village.
Yeah. And in the meantime, I'd like to move approval of the recommended spending for the ESSERS 1 as presented.
I think it was ESSER 2, but
it was okay. I said 1.
And it sounds like, Steve, you did say that it could be that those expenses belong somewhere else better and may not exactly be ESSER 2. So maybe the motion should be approve those expenses from whatever the most appropriate category is. And if I'm remembering, it was a summer safari, some testing stuff, and something else. Okay.
And the daycare for staff.
The daycare for staff. Okay.
And can we add in there the approval of the second interim report, Trustee Mulgard?
With a positive certification.
I would like to accept both of those amendments to my pathetic motion.
So the motion was to approve the second interim report with a positive certification, as well as the 3 specific expenditures listed in the presentation. That was the motion. Can we have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Trustee Barrett. And then Tyler, were you seconding it or did you have a question? Okay. So motion was made by Trustee Mulgard, seconded by Trustee Barrett. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. Anybody opposed? And no abstentions. Okay.
Great,
Motion carries. Thank you, Steve. Okay. Oh, so we're getting close to the end, folks. We have item D2. This is resolution number 19, 2021. And I think, Nicole, if you're with us, you're gonna do that one? Okay.
Yes, so this resolution is a discontinuance of particular kind of service. It's the elimination of our science TOSA position. It will not result in a layoff, but nonetheless, we wanted to bring it to you as a resolution to discontinue this position.
All right. Is there a motion on the table to discontinue this position?
I so move.
I second it.
Moved by Trustee Nelson, seconded by Trustee Fernandez. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Any opposed? Okay. So that is handled, and D3 was pulled. So I think we're moving now to F1, which is superintendent's report. Superintendent Cuban.
Just a couple of things. One, and you've probably heard from me enough tonight, but I'll add 2 things. One is I cannot wait for March 18th. I just, having kids back on campus almost 4 weeks ago, it's just so energizing and rewarding to see kids back on campus. And I cannot wait until March 18th to see our students in 7 through 12 back on campus. And we know we have our work cut out in the next year and a half, and we're looking forward to the challenge, and we cannot wait to see those kids. So super excited about that. It makes me smile beyond belief. And then second thing, I have been, I'm working on, as part of 2 different statewide coalitions. One is on professional learning. The other is on CTE, Career Technical Education Stability. I'm super excited. There's a proposal being brought forward to, I think you know this, but every year we have to budget for additional CTE funding in our supplemental and concentration grant funds, because from year to year, we do not know how much money we're going to get in career technical education CTIG funds. And so we're trying to educate our lawmakers about the effects that instability has on our organizations. And there's a proposal that's being put forward to increase the amount of funding for career technical education and to provide stability so that districts would know from year to year what type of funding we're getting for CTE. So that's exciting. Last thing I'll say is the Equity Task Force has been meeting. We have our another workshop on Tuesday. I look forward to working with that team to develop recommendations to bring back to the board. Whoops. And that is all, now that it's dark.
Great. Any questions for Superintendent Cuban? All right, thank you. Oh, Trustee Nelson.
Quick one. Vaccinations are out. I know many of us have been vaccinated in this group. I'm really interested in meeting in public again in the normal or some modified version. How do we, businesses have people that are together, and I think it's time to, part of our earlier conversation, it's time to start pushing back a little bit and saying, okay, things are changing. We need to be able to speak without fluttering and all the rest of the Zoom fun stuff.
I thank you for bringing that up, Trustee Nelson. I agree, and I'm just wondering, you know, when we asked this before, we got a no, but I'm just thinking it's time to ask the public health director again. And I think we could ask, say, we'd like to meet in person with masks on. We can do 6 feet apart if that's makes important to him, and it would not be open to the public, but we can begin and see what he says. How does the board feel about that?
Yes. The key thing would be not being open to the public, because that's what I think he was having so much trouble about.
Even though we had said that, but
maybe we could also let Deb know privately if we've been vaccinated. Somebody, if you have a medical condition or you don't believe in vaccinations, I don't want to know. But maybe we could let Deb know, so that the superintendent know. So then if everybody's vaccinated, she can add that information to the facts she's providing.
And I think it would also be, oh, just lost my train of thought about this.
While you're thinking we wouldn't have the public coming in, but we still would be having a public meeting. So we'd have to figure a way out to have the public be able to watch it, not like this, because it'll probably be one camera with a wide lens, and they'd still be able to call in, right? We'd figure something out. So it's still public.
Right.
And I think I remembered, I think maybe, I don't know if the letter needs to be this detailed, but I did note that court does meet in person on certain occasions. They have kind of protocols in place, but they meet in person. They take their masks down when they speak, and it seems to work in some venues. And I think it'd be great for us to be at the forefront of starting to meet in person again, particularly since our school staff is meeting people in person now.
I will ask that question, and Megan, I'll run by you what I will be writing.
Okay. I think we just keep asking the questions until someone says yes. All right, any other board member reports?
No, I would just say thank you to the staff for all the work you're continuing to do. And we really appreciate it. We know that it's day in and day out. It's task after task, and it's a real grind. And you guys have just risen to every occasion and kept a positive attitude, which is really admirable given the time. So thank you for always advocating for our students and putting them first in your decisions.
Yes.
Thank you all so much for your support. It's been definitely a long road, but I'm really proud of our staff, and I know as a parent of 3 high schoolers myself, I know how challenging things are, and I look forward to getting the kids back on campus.
Okay, thank you, everybody. So I think all we have now is planning. So
we have consent, don't we?
Oh, sorry. Can I have a motion? Thank you. Can I have a motion to approve the consent calendar?
I so move.
I'll second it.
Okay, moved by Trustee Nelson, seconded by Trustee Arkin. All those in favor of approving the consent agenda?
Aye.
Aye. All right, any abstentions? Any noes? Okay. Consent calendar is approved. Okay, sorry, now we get to planning. So, Debbie, do you want to let us know when agenda planning would be?
Yes, the next regular meeting is scheduled for April 15th, so agenda planning will be on Tuesday, April 6th at noon.
I can do that.
Thank you, Trustee Mulgard. Who did it last time? I'm supposed to write this down. Zoe, you did? Did
I
you?
did it last time, yeah.
And did Tyler, did you as well?
No, I did not. I don't remember. I would love to do it again if you guys would have me.
So just keep in mind, we're supposed to do it like every, what, third month, is that right?
But Zoe, you just did it, right? You did just
I
do
just
it?
did it. I don't want, yeah, I just did it.
Okay.
Did you do the one before that, Tyler?
I kind of think you did, Tyler. I mean, I love talking with you and I'll talk with you anytime you want, but I think you did do agenda planning last time.
Tyler did do it. I have them listed. Tyler did it. Sorry, Tyler.
This is great, and I know that there's this huge power struggle inside the school board. I just want to make sure that during the summertime that there are no complaints when I volunteer for nothing. So I would love to do it, but I don't have to.
Okay. I'm gonna win this power struggle, and I'm gonna have Trustee Mulgard and Trustee Arkin do this. But I will note, Tyler, that I do know you have very uneven availability, and this is the time when you're available, and the summer is not. Is that correct? Pretty much. Okay. So we'll have Trustee Mulgard and Trustee Arkin at agenda planning on April 6th.
I can't do it April 6th. Sorry. So
Tyler's back.
Tyler can go. Sorry. Yes. Sorry, Tyler.
Well, Trustee Barrett, or do you want to? I think Susan was the one before. So.
And I was with Susan.
Okay. So this is going to be kind of crazy. Do either of you want to do agenda planning on April 6th?
I'm fine with it, but I would be glad for Tyler. I mean, I did it month before last.
You know what? Should we just let Tyler keep doing this?
Sure.
So he's saying no.
I mean, whatever, but Tyler tries to do it every single month. Every single month.
Tyler, this is it.
All right, Tyler, you're doing this, and then you're not doing it again for another couple months.
Yeah, we're on to you.
Okay.
You've had it. Okay,
so it better be really interesting agenda planning since. Okay, so I guess we'll go with Trustee Mulgard and Trustee Nelson because it's important to him, and I'm going to honor that it's important to you, and I want credit for it, Tyler. So, but then next time he's off. Okay, so we'll do that April 6th since he really wants to do it. At noon, Debbie? Deb, is she frozen or or is she just sitting really?
I think she's frozen.
I did hear her say yes, though, through the wall. So
okay.
Say yes.
Okay. And Deb, if you wouldn't mind, my little date book doesn't go to April 6th. If you could email me that date, I'd really appreciate it so I can make sure I can get it on my work calendar.
She said will do.
Okay. Okay.
I can
All
hear
right.
it through the wall.
Can I have a motion to adjourn?
Just please get us in-person meetings. I'm so done with this. I move that we adjourn.
Will do.
Okay. Motion to adjourn by Trustee Nelson. Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
Okay, it's Trustee Barrett seconded. All those in favor? Aye.